Hello and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool community. My name is Wack, today is July 29th and today's episode is going to cover grants information that we got with the new round 14 ending. We're also going to be talking about some potential tokenomics changes before Saturn, or the ideas being floated for that at least, and we're going to be talking about some discussions about block building from Peter Sility and some big responses. So let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
So we're going to start the episode right here with the latest grants results that have come out. And here Shifrin writes that the GMC has concluded discussions and scoring for round 14. So that's all out now. And there's a 14-day clock from now for anyone who wants to challenge that. He starts by explaining the current roster, and that's the same as last month. The applications breakdown here said there was 7 grants, 0 bounties and 2 retro awards. The total amount of grants requested was $400,000 and the total amount of retros requested was $2,000. And the GMC of course was going to receive $60,000 of incoming funds. And then if we have a look at the actual projects that were approved, so Ramana's Rocket Lend was approved. We're going to be talking about that quite a lot actually. Rescue Node was approved. Patches got a discretionary budget. Rocket Fuel was approved for another 6 months, so thank you GMC for that. We also got Ken's Twitter Spaces was approved, and then Halooo and Steely got support work approved. Node Hub and Ethereum Foundation Attackathon were both declined, so that's that. The main one to focus on though here is Rocket Lend, because that I think was deferred last month and it's a project I think a lot of people are looking forward to and seeing. So let's start with that and focus on that. The rest of them you can read yourself in the description below. So Rocket Lend was originally asking for $90,000. And Ramana had a breakdown of how he wanted that payment to be paid. Well, the GMC kind of went back to the drawing board and recalculated the whole thing and worked out a new mechanism for funding Rocket Lend. So the idea is that Rocket Lend would be a public good for the Rocket Pool community. There would be no fee for using Rocket Lend. Rocket Lend wouldn't take anything from the top. And the way that it would work was the GMC would pay Ramana $7,500 as a way of saying thank you for the work that you've already completed. Now, Ramana would also be paid, well, not Ramana, but Rocket Lend would be paid about $30,000 to perform an audit using either Arena for Code or Sherlock, which are two like crowdsourcing audit platforms, and then we'll leave it up to Ramana and their team, the Rocket Lend team, to figure out how that should work. And then on top of that, Ramana will be getting a monthly stipend of $300 per month, and that is just to perform maintenance costs and make sure everything's running. And mostly, I think that will be for the front end later. And then there is another amount of $50,000 that Ramana could unlock by having more validators basically borrowing RPL. So it'll work with the amount of RPL that's borrowed. So it says Ramana will be compensated monthly based on the total active borrowed RPL. Each month he will receive $500 for every 100 mini pools worth of borrowed RPL, with a maximum total compensation of $50,000. The GMC will coordinate with Ramana on the most efficient definition for mini pools worth of borrowed RPL. So let me give you an example of how this works. So say for the first month there's 100 mini pools, Ramana would get $500 for that. Now the total amount in Ramana's account that would be left would be $49,500. The next month there's 1,000, so for that month Ramana would get $5,000. So now there'd be $44,500 left in this account. The next month we get another 10,000 validators, for example. So Ramana would then basically just max out his 50,000, so he wouldn't get any more money above that. So that's just to cover Ramana's costs, the team costs, and it seems like Ramana thinks that's fair. And in 6 months' time, Ramana can apply for another grant for the stipend and the monthly maintenance costs, and that would be for ongoing costs. So maybe if the costs didn't work, $300 a month, or he just wants the $300 a month, kind of like the way the Rescue Node does. So I think this was actually a really good decision. It seems that it worked out quite well, so I'm actually really happy about that. But then if we go to the Discord, I think what's happening now is that Ramana's kind of already talking about this. So he says, hey everyone, keen to get some more tests for the test suite. Does anyone here have capacity or interest in coming up with ideas of things to test? The current test suite is here. This does various things like registering borrower, creating lending pools, borrowing from pool, repaying, and checking things revert when they're supposed to, e.g. authorized or not enough funds, etc. He says, but it's quite incomplete. So now what we need here is for people in the community to really step up and help Rocket Lend become really successful. Now, I really do think that Rocket Lend has the potential to be an absolutely amazing add-on for Rocket Pool. And even Langer's, mentioned how Rocket Lend could help Rocket Pool scale in the short term. And this is actually, I think it's a really, really great idea. So please, I urge you to learn a little bit more about what it is. And you can do that by going to the Rocket Lend GitHub. You can ask Ramana questions. If you want to offer help, now there's going to be, a kitty of money that will be available from the GMC for this. And I think the reality is that, if we see Rocket Lend is doing really well, but the costs haven't quite lined up with what the GMC expects, there might still be, the possibility of Ramana applying again and saying that, that $50,000 just wasn't enough for the amount of work that we've had to do. And, we're showing really strong growth. We've got hundreds of validators, maybe thousands of validators running. Please give us some more money to keep us going. And I think that might be a possibility. Of course, I can't say too much because I'm on the GMC. We'll have to evaluate every proposal as it comes in. But this is now something that I'm very excited about. So you'll probably hear me talking about this in the coming days a lot. And I really want this, to get to audit and then for us to be successful with Rocket Lend. Here, Epinef is also on the GMC, is already trying to give some, ask some questions, trying to get some information about Ramana's desire to make the contracts immutable, and how things might change depending on that, and what might come next. So here Matt basically is helping Ramana as kind of like a project management person and doing some of the communication stuff. So if you are interested in helping out, I'm sure that Ramana will be happy to have a look. If you are proficient with Viper or smart contracts, reach out, because I think Ramana would love for there to be more eyes on the contract before it goes to audit. I think he really just wants some more internal eyes going over things just to catch small bugs that will speed up the audit process. But I think what you should do is definitely reach out and let's try to do this together, because this will actually be a really good interim thing for Rocket Pool to get growth between now and Saturn going live. And Saturn, like I said, might be some ways away. So let's work on that. Let's work on this together. Okay, so another thing that might help Rocket Pool grow before Saturn is ETH-only LEBs, so LEB8s. So I talked about this on Rocket Fuel last week, where I was telling Halooo to develop this idea more and see what comes of it. Well, he made a thread under research today. It's called ETH-only LEB8s. And he said, I'm just posting this here for now, just to get things started, but I'll post more ideas later. Popash came by and said that it would be cool if before proposing anything, we could change the contract so ETH-only LEB8s work. And then he says this would avoid surprises and make effort estimation timelines more accurate. So then Halooo kind of responded to that. So he says, okay, so the question is about RPL rewards, right? So he says if we remove the 10% threshold, we somewhat rug node operators that have kept topping up by significantly diluting their rewards. On the other side, people have been willing to completely exit their mini pools or switch to mini pool 18s for RPL rewards, and there's two ways this can go. Either they partially exit and switch the rest to ETH only pools, which would be good, or they fully switch to ETH only, which would be bad. And then he says if we give RPL rewards to everyone, we'd most likely be incentivizing the status quo, where people will just stick to their 14% LEB8s. ETH only would then mainly just be an incentive for new node operators to join. I'm not sure how many people that are over 10% collateral now would react to their RPL APR dropping. I imagine they won't be happy, but I'm not sure they'll actually sell their RPL because of it. And there's this actually really interesting idea that Popash brought up. and he was quoting Val, or not sure, maybe both of them, saying that RPL bulls are RPL bulls because they believe RPL will gain value long term against ETH. A few APR percentage points won't be a big detriment. So the idea here is, right, that, like, you know, with your APR you're getting 10% a year, but RPL can in a single day have 10% gains against ETH. So the value of your RPL is much more dependent on the amount of, you know, the price ratio compared to ETH, compared to the APR that you're getting. So, you know, the APR is just a little bit of a bonus. The main thing is that you're speculating on RPL, the asset, and that will hopefully in the long term, of course, appreciate against ETH. So these are some of the questions that are coming up in this thread. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it's definitely something that I'm going to be following because I'm really intrigued by this idea, right? Like, if you look at the node operator ETH charts for Rocket Pool, you'll see that it's been kind of stagnant. It's been going down, not stagnant actually, it's been going down pretty much for the last year, and that's showing no signs of stopping. And Rocket Pool, you know, we've lost market share to protocols like EtherFi, and then there's others as well, like Puffer and Swell and even Stader, who to some extent are like competitors. And Rocket Pool, you know, still has that brand that you know, we're like best in class, and you know, the community's done a really good job of getting that messaging out. The reality is though that you know, as a protocol right now, we are stagnant and we're shrinking. And, you know, our massive growth potential that we have might be 9 months away, potentially maybe a little bit less if we're very, very lucky, but potentially up to a year away. And with Lido CSM going live, you know, in November, or maybe October, November time, they might get another lead on us by having ETH-only validators. So these questions, I think both of these ideas together are really interesting. Rocket Lend would make it so the RPL status quo would exist, where you'd need 10% of borrowed ETH, and Rocket Lend would just have a market where you could go and borrow that from, which would be amazing. However, an alternative is this, you know, ETH-only validators. Now, personally, I would prefer for Rocket Lend to take this space and Rocket Lend to really grow and thrive. And of course, I'm getting no money from Rocket Lend, like I've got no financial incentives from Rocket Lend. I just want to see Rocket Pool grow, right? And I think that Rocket Lend might be the better way of doing this. But for some reason, if Rocket Lend doesn't work, then maybe this is something that could happen as well. But the reality is that we really need to get something happening before you know, the October, November time, because Lido took a huge lead from us before, and now is a time where we have got to prevent that from happening and not let Lido you know, corner that home staker market with boosted rewards, right? So I'm definitely going to be really following this very closely. I'm really curious to see how it all goes, but follow along with this discussion. I'm sure you know, you'll see the same old research heavyweights kind of weighing in and giving their opinions on this. There's going to be a lot of good ideas, I think, that come out of this, so definitely keep an eye on it. But I'll let you all know how it's going as well. Okay, next we had a little bit of fun here with people talking in trading about who calls the ratio command the most, you know, for the Rocket Watch. No, it's actually Rocket Watch, right? I think it's Vaka's bot. And we see here that Sneaky Ninja Guy called it 3,267 times, and Zemo was second with 3,001 times. Estoma was next with 1,213, Andy with 1,092. And me, I'm on number 16 with 277, which isn't that much. And then I asked Halooo, I said, hey, can you do it for the ping server as well? Because I think that's where I called it most. Here we see that he pulled those numbers, and let me see where they are. There it is. So on the ping server, I've got 793, and then D2 has 259. So this is what I mean, like with the ping server and like the regular Rocket Pool server. If you add both of those up, I'm well over 1,000. So I like to call the ratio bot quite frequently, but I think this is a nice little rocket scrape piece of information that we've been able to pull out here. Okay, here we've got news of a client update, and this one is from Nimbus, and Nimbus saying that this is a low priority, low urgency upgrade. It's version 24.7.0. and 24.7.0, and this has API improvements and fixes. So if you have upgraded to this, that's great, but I don't think you've got any rush unless there's specific need that you want from this upgrade. So you can keep that in mind if you're on Nimbus. And then next we have some rocket pool news here coming from the forum, and this is about the sentiment poll. So we talked about this on Rocket Fuel last week, but I just wanted to give you an update with where the vote stood, and the vote is like just monumental about the activity that this has garnered. So we have 112 votes that have come in, and of these 98% are in favor of moving to the snapshot, and then 2% are against moving to the snapshot. One thing that I found really interesting was that even Nick from NodeSet actually voted in favor of moving to the snapshot vote, which is really good. I shared a personal worry with you all last week that there's a worry that I have that this vote will be contentious. However, I'm really hopeful that it'll go through without too many worries, and it will be quite straightforward. But I guess time will tell with that, and we'll see in the next few weeks. Okay, moving on to some staking news now. Here we have an update from Peter Sillidy, and Peter says that PeerDAS is the direction Ethereum is being taken into with the next forks, with the aim to raise, not immediately, the blobs to a staggering 32 megabytes per block. He says that's fun, but are we aware that local block production is collateral damage that the PeerDAS authors are willing to take? So what Peter is saying here is that the demands of the Ethereum network are going to grow so high that home staking will not be possible anymore. Home block production will not be possible anymore. And you all know that we have currently we have proposer builder separation through MEV boost. So people run MEV boost on their computers, on their nodes, and those blocks get presented to them, and there's rewards for them in that. So they're not doing almost, I think 90% plus of people on Ethereum right now are using MEV boost software. So there is the idea that there's not much local block production taking place already, but what Peter is saying here is that the trend is towards more and more block production happening elsewhere, and they're being proposer builder separation. Now here Peter kind of explains why PeerDAS with 32 megabyte of blobs won't be possible. He says that Ethereum is very strict on timings. You have 4 seconds to get your block out to the entire network. With PeerDAS, that splits across subnets, so it's 32 megabytes that you need to ripple across 4 seconds. The numbers, I think, will murder all home stakers. So he says 32 megabytes of data sent to 4 peers. That's 1 gigabyte upload speeds. So he says if the PeerDAS network needs 4 hops, that's 4 gigabytes. You have 4 seconds. Making a block will need a minimum 1 gigabyte upload link, 1 gigabyte per second uplink. So if you account blob propagation that easily doubles, then add some extra on top. So we're at 2.5 gigabytes upload second, and that even the best home internet will give you 1 gigabyte fiber upload speeds, which are expensive and really rare, right? They're only in like some developed countries, not in every country in the world. So Peter here says Ethereum research is murdering home stakers live in front of everyone. This is not something I signed up for when I joined Ethereum. He says at this point I'd be happy to be proven otherwise, but I feel Ethereum is losing the plot. The research team fully embraced the idea to centralize everything as long as it can be verified, which is a cute charade. Decentralized validation but centralized control. He says the fact that certain members of Ethereum research also allegedly run their own MEV relays is an extremely messed up incentive, and this is, I think, referring to the fact that Justin Drake runs the ultrasound money relay, and he says a messed up incentive where the protocol designers can directly profit off centralizing their designs. So Peter then says, as I see, Ethereum is being taken over live, and the Ethereum research team is either completely oblivious to it, which I find unlikely, or they are playing their own game, which I find much more likely with past advisorship reveals and infrastructure their co-author/run. He says, as before, at the end of the day, the number will probably go up and many people will be happy. I'm just wondering when we've sold out. So Peter comes out, Stakers Union, of course, who's trying to champion home staking. This is thanks for sharing this. Would it be possible to make blobs optional? For example, Solo Staker could still submit self-built valid a block without blobs if their setup doesn't support it. Blob users would suffer a brief delay until the next proposal. And then here Vitalik replies by saying the research team fully embraced the idea to centralize everything as long as it can be verified. And Vitalik says, having just come out in the Ethereum Foundation research workshop going on for the past week, I can confirm this is false. We've had all kinds of discussions on minimizing centralization, and this includes things like deep analysis of multi-proposer and seeing if the builder role can be eliminated entirely, maximizing the power of the inclusion lists, ideas around making the fork choice dependent on transaction inclusion, analysis of Orbit SSF, single slot finality, and thoughts around accelerating deployment of the Orbit mechanism, which can potentially push down minimum deposit sizes by 10x even before we do SSF. He says distributed block building for PeerDAS, networking analysis and bandwidth optimizations of PeerDAS and FullDAS, way to make recovery from 51% attacks more partially automated and rely less on the social layer, and making sure inclusion lists apply fully to 1 blobs, 2 native account abstraction, e.g. EIP 7560 transactions. So Peter then said who will be creating blobs in 5 years, and what will be the barrier of entry to doing it, and who will be storing the state in 5 years, and what will be the barrier of entry to doing it. And that will I as a user be able to do in 5 years without a third party operator. And then Vitalik kind of responds, and there's a whole discussion that carries on here. So if you are interested in this back and forth between Vitalik and Peter Sility, definitely go check that out. Dankrad Feist also kind of opined, saying that while I hope we hit 32 megabytes PeerDAS as soon as possible, and he says, I think it's critical for Ethereum's success. And nice thing is that the 2D Reed Solomon codes with KZG commitments are excellent for distributed erasure code computation. We have thought about this possibility from the very beginning, and since there is much renewed interest in having a complete mempool due to inclusion lists, there is a very clear path to do this now. In PeerDAS this isn't as straightforwardly possible, but with the amount of data, it's simply way smaller. So you can check out Dankrad's ideas around this topic as well. But yeah, this is, I think Peter, one of the things that Peter does is he likes to throw out these ideas like that he's thinking, and then he wants people to kind of like respond to him. He did this a few months ago as well, and people kind of like, you know, it stirred the hornet's nest, let's just say. And I think Peter's doing it again now. And Peter's very, very well respected. You know, he's like either the founder or one of the team lead at Go Ethereum, and you know that they make Geth. So he's got his hands in all the stuff that's going on, and he wants Ethereum to be successful, but keep that idea of home staking as paramount, right? And he doesn't want the powers of the home staker to be eroded away. But that's a very, very interesting discussion that's happening. Okay, next we got this post from EthStaker, and they're saying introducing the EthStaker deposit CLI, that's a command line interface. So they're saying that, you know, there was this software created by the Ethereum Foundation around the release of the Beacon chain, and it was audited and maintained, but you know, there's been a lot of changes to staking since then. So EthStaker has been in conversation with the Ethereum Foundation, who developed the original tool and have forked it to create a newer EthStaker maintained deposit command line interface that will include new features like prompting for withdrawal address, the ability to create an exit message and perform a voluntary exit for your validators, warnings if the machine you're using is connected to a network, support for more recent OSs and Python version by default, and better support for generating a large number of keys at once. There's a lot of changes documented in version 0.1.0 and release notes and linked in the next tweet. So they're kicking off the audit process, and they're going with trail of bits. I expect to finish the process and do a proper 1.0.0 release around Q4, and community contributions, testing and suggestions are encouraged. So I think they will have you know, some really cool stuff coming around with that. So definitely check it out. Okay, one of the big news of the weekend was a governance attack taking place against Compound here. One of the things that happened was someone accumulated a whole lot of Compound tokens, and then they used those to vote through draining of the Compound treasury and going to like another wallet. So you can read you know, this post from Compound Finance and have a look. Here Gabriel says some much more sophisticated DAO designs are needed, like having veto committees like Aave does can partially address such an issue. Of course, the veto committees themselves can introduce other problems. DAO design is still in its infancy, but I think BORGs can help. And then he says, teams should not be having these kind of conversations in isolation. The problems are too huge. We'll need to work together to solve these issues and make DAOs function effectively. Don't listen to your lawyers if they just reflexively say you can't use multi-sigs in DAO design. The problems not from using multi-sigs can be far greater. Multi-sig design has also evolved. Many lawyers lack full understanding of the tools and structuring techniques available. And then here we have Lamb on the Brink, MilliX, saying not every project with on-chain governance. Every project with on-chain governance can learn a lesson here. Not accruing value to your governance token leads to holder apathy, which leaves your protocol or treasury vulnerable to governance attacks. Hear me out. There's a simple solution. Value accruing governance tokens. So one of the things I want to add here, from the Rocket Pool perspective, is by saying that the RPL integration into the protocol is absolutely amazing, and I think that's one of the reasons why people are so much more passionate about voting with Rocket Pool. Like, we have huge turnouts in terms of DAO participation, every snapshot vote. But one of the reasons why that happens is because RPL is so integral to the protocol, right? Like, you want to stake Ethereum, wonderful, awesome. Here you need some RPL to do it. And RPL gives you rewards, it gives you, in terms of inflation, but it also gives you the voting power, and you need to be a node operator. There's no simple token voting, right? So I think what you get with that is a much more engaged, much more present, much more aware voter base. And I can't imagine like someone proposing a vote to drain, like, for example, the rainy day fund, the PDAO account, or the IMC or GMC's treasuries. I just can't see that happening, because there's way too many people who would be aware of what's going on and who will try to counteract that. And another thing that's happening as well with Rocket Pool, of course, is that we use the square root of the vote power. So the bigger that you are as a holder, the less your vote power per RPL basis you have, which is wonderful as well. Of course, there's a way to Sybil attack, etc., but there's a lot more friction to attack something like Rocket Pool and Rocket Pool governance than there is with something like Compound, for example. Okay, and we're going to end today's news episode with some other news, and this is with Donald Trump speaking at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville over the weekend, and some of his key points, I'm just going to read them out here. So he says he's going to fire Gary Gensler. Now, I think the way that appointments work in US government, he can't actually fire Gary Gensler. Gary Gensler would either have to quit or wait until his term finished. But hey, he said that he's going to fire Gary Gensler on day one. So, okay. Next, he says that he's going to create a US government strategic national Bitcoin stockpile if elected. This is actually really interesting because this point came up a couple of times over the weekend. RFK Jr., who's also running for election, said that he would set up a stockpile where the US government buys 550 Bitcoin every day until they reach 4 million Bitcoin. Now, that is just not going to happen, pretty much. Donald Trump, I think, said that he would buy 1 million Bitcoin, and that would be, pretty good for our bags, let's just say. So then Donald Trump also said that the US government would keep the Bitcoin that it already has, not sell it. It would move it from the Department of Justice to the Treasury for what it owns. He said Bitcoin is going to go to the moon. He said never sell your Bitcoin. He says Bitcoin will probably one day surpass the market cap of gold. More and more people are saying that might happen this cycle, which would be incredibly bullish. He also went on to say that he's going to have a Ross Ulbricht sentence pardoned. He'll never make a CDBC, and Bitcoin and crypto will skyrocket like never before if Donald Trump is elected as president. And Bitcoin is not threatening the dollar. The current US government is threatening the dollar. He says the US government will be the crypto capital of the world, and will make Bitcoin the superpower of the world. And Bitcoin stands for freedom, sovereignty, independence from government coercion and control. And he pledges to keep the Bitcoin community, that the day he takes oath in office, that the current crusade from the Democrats will be over. So he says that Choke Point 2.0 will be finished. So yeah, these were Donald Trump's campaign promises. Of course, take that with however much salt you want, or like however much you believe it. I'm not going to comment on the politics of it, but it's a pretty big deal. So, I thought it would be worth covering it here. But on that note, I'm going to end today's episode. So thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I hope you all had a lovely weekend, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.